Hello? Yeah. Hello, everyone. Before we officially start, can I request that we move slightly closer to the, well, not slightly, but further front? Because we'll be allowing you to ask questions using the mic. And so that's just easier for us to hand it over to you. So if I can just request you guys to move up front, please. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just borrowing one of your mics.
Oh, it's not a mic, it's about the wall.
Yeah, we'll just wait for a few more minutes. But just to let you know, you could use the app, or later on you can use the mic to ask your questions.
Do you think we can have one?
Oh, yes, of course. Just to check if it's on or off, okay?
Testing.
Oh. A glass of water.
This session is recorded, right? So it's going to stay online. I'm asking because I have colleagues that are not in the same time zone, want to watch it. So I was wondering if it's only live or if it stays on the website.
It will be live. It will be live stream first, and then we will have a record of it.
Okay,
At the
great.
end, okay? So no worries about it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I heard that she live, right?
I think you know my colleague Leslie Zambelli, Singapore. She said like she knows you. You've discussed with Schneider before. In Singapore. Are you based in Singapore?
Oh, okay.
She knows you.
All right. Okay, thank you.
We could actually do this conference in French almost. If we're three French people.
I went to the airport speak up for one session, and that time I can speak in Korean.
Many Korean foundation here. I met someone.
Oh, really?
How long did it take to come from Korea?
Quite fun. Actually, it was direct flight from Seoul to Bali, and but it's actually named Christopher. So I took about 20 hours to travel to Bali. First I went to Kuala Lumpur. I stayed there for 5 hours and take a flight here for 3 hours. And when I arrived here, I was at 3 a.m. in the morning.
Me, I came from Hanoi.
Hanoi.
And now for, I think since 2 months ago, we have a direct flight. So I was so lucky actually, because otherwise I would have needed to go to Jakarta and then come here. So it was only 5 hours. For Singapore, it's very easy. And you can go anywhere in Singapore. Yes, yeah. 20 hours. Yeah, exactly.
Probably I could be anywhere in the village. Sorry. Oh, cool.
Good morning. Welcome back. Okay, so time to start our session, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today to discuss the different models of corporate social impact, being intentional and strategic in your chosen approach. So pleasure to be here. I want to first say a big thank you to Trafigura Foundation co-hosting this session with AVPN. Thank you very much, Vincent. We have the pleasure today to welcome amazing experienced practitioner who will illustrate the diversity of those models of corporate social impact. So we're very lucky today. Again, very diverse profile of organizations, and I want to thank our panelists in advance for really sharing their experience and their corporate impact journey, because we're going to see that, we're going to hear, it is a journey actually. So a warm welcome to Vincent Faber. Vincent is Executive Director of Trafigura Foundation. We also have the pleasure to have Jason Chu. Jason is ESG Impact Lead, SK Innovation. Then Jose Alay, Regional Director of Microsoft Philanthropies for Asian Pacific region. And last but not least, Diane Le Goff, Global Leader Education and Youth CSR Programs for Schneider Electric. So there are some key takeaways in terms of objective of the session that I'd like to share with you. One is really to learn what corporate social impact models may fit best your organization. Second, what are the opportunities and challenges in those respective corporate social impact approach. Third, we'd like to have also this objective of helping you in leading your organization with a greater intentionality and strategy in delivering your corporate social investing. And last but not least, you know, it's also for the non-corporate participants to really realize, to create more awareness and realize, you know, how strategic and how active corporate impact players are, and to realize the key role of corporate social investors in the impact ecosystem. They are highly engaged already. Maybe we think it's not enough, but I can tell you that they are already, the momentum is there, and we have amazing speakers with organizations who are already very strategic, and it will give you a good sense of how they, the key role they play in the impact ecosystem. So now, just before I start, so I will start with a quick intro, then we'll engage a discussion with the panelists, and we really want to keep 30 minutes for the Q&A, because we really want to hear from you, to hear your reaction, and ask any clarification and any questions you may have. So before we really kickstart, I'd like to know who is in the room. So please, if you are a representative of a corporate organization, please stand up. Thank you. If you are, no, please stand up. Please stand up. I have an extra question for you. If you represent a corporate foundation, corporate citizenship team, corporate giving, corporate impact investing, raise your hand. Thank you very much. Thank you. Very interesting. Very important for us to know who is in the room. All right. So we just a logistic note. these Q&A question sessions will be live. We'll have microphone, but you can also, during the course of the session, put your question in the chat in the app. I think you're used to that now. Okay, let's start. So why such a topic? Why it was important for AVPN and Trafigura to really have the opportunity to have strategic discussion about this topic? Well, we all know both the urgency to deliver the SDG objective 2030, the pandemic, and the deglobalization, as we sadly start hearing now, are a stress test for responsible business. Corporates are under pressure to really further engage in the societal space. They have been pushed by various stakeholders, internally by their employees, clients, suppliers, and externally by government, regulators, civil society. It's really end of business as usual. And around the world, a lot of C-level executives want to do more. They realize, yes, they need to go beyond the classic CSR approach, but to be more intentional and strategic. But how they align the impact and business models, they don't necessarily always know how. So while there are no one-size-fits-all pathways and approaches, there are still a couple of key questions to answer, to start with. One is, how to create more coherence between impact and business at the company of my company. And here, one quick precision on definition. By impact, we mean this long-term, highly engaged capital supporting social organizations through philanthropy, corporate citizenship, corporate giving, corporate impact investing, and so on. What we call corporate social investors, those corporate social investors team. And by business, we mean business at large, business unit, inclusive business, all topic related to ESG, agenda and sustainability. Okay, the second key question we think is, as a starting point, is really what the leadership needs to set in place to effectively create and increase this coherence and optimize the collaboration between impact and business teams. And the third, last but not least, is what and how can resources be mobilized to support this approach? So at EVPA, for the past 5-6 years, we've been conducting a number of research. We issue regularly strategic guidance. And to frame the discussion, we thought it was useful to share that quickly with you. And I start with the first question, how to create more coherence. We generate a framework which is very much linked to the strategic alignment of typically a corporate foundation. What is the strategic alignment of my corporate foundation with the core business and the core value of my company? And I'm happy to share this visual now. You see on this visual, 4 types of strategic alignment. On the left side, you see 2, whereby a corporate foundation will have the ambition to generate impact at the beneficiary level. So you have the non-material alignment. Typically, the corporate foundation will choose a geography, a partner, not more than that, to really align with its company. The second type of alignment on the left side is really a thematic alignment. So you move the needle a little bit closer to the company and you choose an SDG, a core value of the company to align with. The second part on the right side, there you would have a corporate foundation, philanthropy initiatives, having 2 ambitions. One is to create impact at the beneficiary level, but also creating impact, having the ambition to transform the industry and or the business practice into more sustainable and inclusive practice. So two different, very different type of alignment, left and right. And really, there is no one better than the other. But the key question to have in mind is to really ask ourselves, where do I position my impact team on this framework? What is my objective? You need to know where you position yourself. Very good. And it's key because also it will induce a certain level of collaboration, more or less, leveraging more or less assets of the company. Second, when you realize that the impact you generate is very much proportional to the combination of how successful you are in combining the social innovation and the scaling impact of the company. This is where the catalyzing effect of the scaling of the scaling capacity of the company plays a very big role. And indeed, what we discovered, we'll be able to share those slides. Huh? And what we discovered actually in this visual, you see yes, there is a win-win. Yes, there is, because this is one of the secret sauce, right? Why a company would be willing to collaborate with the corporate foundation. The corporate foundation, it's pretty clear. They have an obvious reason to collaborate. On the left side, you see we sum up the good reason, access to the corporate assets, as I mentioned, access to employees' engagement, credibility, convening power, being ambassador for good cause, and potentially systemic change at industry level when you have an industry alignment. But on the right side, in the blue box, you see a summary of the reason why the top management would support such an initiative. It's actually an opportunity to strengthen the brand equity of the company. Second, as we all know, it's a very good way to attract and retain talent. Third, it improves license to operate, and not only with the approach of risk mitigation, but really generating positive impact. This is all what we want, right? Then source of innovation, and we'll have amazing example with our panelists. Increase supply chain efficiency, and last but not least, gain market knowledge. That's kind of a summary. So coming to the other point, there is another mantra at EVPA, another strategic guidance that we're happy to share with you today. It's this visual. So you see on the you see the different. This is the impact spectrum. Philanthropy on the left side, orange color, and on the blue side, right-hand side, it's really the business units positioning. So you see the different corporate impact teams, corporate foundation, corporate impact investing fund, corporate accelerator innovation, the message on this visual, there are two very important messages. One is to really, we try, in the strategic guidance, we encourage companies to be very aware of the complementarity of the different impact teams, building on each other's strengths. Complementarity between a corporate foundation, a corporate impact investing fund, with also inclusive business initiative, with sustainability. And the second message is that those initiatives developed by those different impact teams should be aligned on a common impact vision of the company. This is at the very top of this visual, you see the purpose, aligning on a common impact vision, purpose. And it's a compass, it's like a North Star. And you have this red thread in mind. It's it is actually a compass for the whole organization, all the stakeholders inside the organization. And as Paul Polman says, not promoting his book, but actually he's quite right. He's saying that's the best way, really, one of the best way to make sure that your organization as a company as a whole is net positive to all your stakeholders, people and planet. Voilà. So without waiting, I'm very happy to now transition and to hear from our panelists their experience in this corporate social investment journey. So again, very various profile of organization. And in the prep call, we had very insightful information, and it enabled us to position each organization, and I will start with Trafigura Foundation. I will start with Vincent. Vincent, please, can you tell us what your organization pursues and comment on the strategic alignment just behind us? Thank you, Vincent.
Thank you, Sophie, and good morning, everybody, and thank you for your interest in joining this panel. So, Trafigura Foundation, we are a corporate foundation, otherwise I wouldn't be here. So we are associated to a multinational that some of you may know or may not know, a commodity trader, one of the world's largest commodity trader, called Trafigura Pte. Limited, with its based in Singapore, but headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. And the foundation was established almost 15 years ago. We're reaching to our 50th anniversary right now. And we started, so we were built really as a corporate foundation, which I joined right from the outset. I have been called to establish, to set up this foundation. And I think it's interesting to know that I myself am not a corporate person. I was not a corporate person, still wouldn't refer to me as a corporate person. I came from the outside world. I have a background, let's say, in civil society. And I was called in to build up this foundation. And I think that says a lot about the intention of the company, that was really genuinely to give back to society. Very shortly, I'm not going to develop our journey because I think this will come into the deep dive questions. But what are we doing? We started really as an all-round kind of foundation. Almost, we were a corporate foundation, but we were operating almost as a private foundation on a vast variety of issues, from women's empowerment to rural development, from environmental programs to programs for the disabled, education, etc. You name it. There was hardly any field in which we did not support. So we're a groundmaking foundation. Now we support partners. We partner with NGOs, associations, civil society organizations. But then, and we'll come to the journey, why that journey and how it took place. But then we indeed narrowed down our spectrum of activity. From that broad array of activities, we sharpened it and narrowed it down to two specific fields, actually three strategic areas. First, the two first one, fair and sustainable employment. Second one, clean and safe supply chains. So you can see that there has been kind of a move towards, let's say, the industry, not the business per se, but the industry of the company. And again, I'll explain why later. The second one being so clean and safe supply chains. We are kind of repackaging now the labels, but we're not changing drastically those two focuses, but we're working more on sustainable livelihoods and responsible supply chains. Why? Because we are trying to encompass in that framework the climate change aspect. So we're trying to work through the lens of climate change. So we're working now more on, let's say, sustainable livelihoods and responsible supply chains. So not a drastic change, but just encompassing, just encapsulating these aspects relating to climate change. And the third aspect, which I will not expand on, but which is also part of the identity of a corporate foundation, which is about staff engagement, how to give structure, guidance, encourage employees to give back to society through their own ventures, which we try to support with the traditional schemes of matching funds, for instance, but also other type of instruments. So this is it about who we are, what we do. We are operating globally in, I would say, something like 35 countries, more or less, and over some 40 different programs, often, well, almost always multi-year programs. And I will stop there. Thank you, Sophie.
Super. Thank you very much, Vincent. So we heard thematic alignment, mix of thematic alignment and industry alignment in terms of core value. Very much the foundation has this mission to really create awareness among employees as a core value of Trafigura as a company. Jason, you are a business person. Your background is clearly business, and you transitioned to corporate strategy, and now you're embedding the societal impact into the business of SK Innovation. We're very curious to know about, please, your organization, your mission, and the positioning of SK Innovation just behind us between industry alignment and business alignment.
Okay, thank you, Sophie and AVPN, to invite me as a speaker and to be part of this meaningful event. SK Group is a global company in various business. SK Innovation is for energy company, and SK Hynix is manufacturing the semiconductors, and the SK Telecom for telecommunications. And I'm working in SK Innovation. SK Innovation is started as the first oil company in petrochemical area in Korea, and has established itself as the #1 energy and chemical company in Korea. And currently is expanding business to the batteries and separators to diversify its energy portfolios. It has been 4 years since I started thinking about social values. I thought that it was just natural for a company to maximize the economic profit. But suddenly our chairman, Choi Tae-won of SK Group, suggested the idea of defining the value of business model as sum of economic and social values. He said, it is important to increase the social values and social impact, even if economic value is not maximized in short term. Also, I didn't really understand what he's talking about, because I've been working in SK Innovation for 18 years, and I tried to maximize it, always try to maximize profit. And I thought that idea was absurd in the beginning. Later, maybe I get punished because I didn't agree with our chairman's idea, and I didn't intentionally.
Can you speak closer to the...
Oh, sorry. I didn't intentionally join this current team, and I finally had to join this current office which is in charge of ESG and social impact. And I was able to deepen my understanding of social values later on. When it comes to the question of what type of strategic alignment SK Innovation currently pursue, we focus on industry and business alignment. And it is hard not to mention that SK Group's social value management, since the very core of our company's strategies can be traced back to the group's business philosophies. SK Group set a direction for creating innovative business for sustainable growth. by solving various problems facing the society, diverting from the previous strategies which focus only on creating economic value. SK Group started pursue the long-term survival by innovating each business toward sustainable future. To this end, SK Group has also introduced the double bottom line. You know, maybe everyone knows what double bottom line is, which combines the both economic and social perspectives of evaluating the potential value of business. And we facilitate the DBL management. SK Group introduced the conservative and objectives impact measurement method to capture all social values created by company monetarily. To illustrate this is crucial for petrochemical companies, including SK Innovation, to directly address the environment problems, to deliver and expand social value. The various stakeholders also require the industry to be responsible for environmental agenda. So therefore, creation of social impact should be directly aligned with our business. And because acceleration of social value comes directly from the transforming our business models. That's my answer.
Thank you very much, Jason. Now, Josea, you have a long-lasting experience really supporting underserved communities at LinkedIn before Microsoft. And we're going to discover that Microsoft Philanthropies is completely aligned with the business. It's amazing and it's fascinating to hear you. Can you, because it's really a big jump, right? For in terms of background, for you to be in this position to really develop such a strategic philanthropic activities, so much aligned with the business, right? So there is no contradiction here, and you're going to illustrate that. We very much like to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sophie. Hi, everyone. My name is Hosea. I lead Microsoft Philanthropies for Asia and the Pacific. For those who do not know what Microsoft is, we produce iPhones. So jokes aside, I'm going to get fired tomorrow. Anyway. What does Microsoft Philanthropy does and how does it align back to business? One of the key things, so from a Microsoft Philanthropies perspective, we are very clear. The work that we do focuses on underserved communities across the world. So that is very clear in terms of our target audience. And how we actually operationalize the work that we do basically is looking at how and what matters to the business. Let me give you an example of a few priorities that we look at, right? So first and foremost, the main priority we look at is actually skilling. Digital skilling of underserved communities so that they are able to upskill or reskill themselves and be part of the digital economy. And this has become very, very important, especially, post-COVID, right? We understand how a lot of jobs has gone virtual. And at the end of the day, the underserved communities before COVID are now becoming even more underserved, right? So, and that's where Microsoft is coming in to look at programs and the work that we can do to align everything. And we bring in a lot of content from basic digital literacy right up to very high level kind of digital skilling from cloud to AI. Right? So we actually give, support and partner with a lot of nonprofits, partner with governments as well in terms of bringing the content and the upskilling work together with the community. So that's basically one huge part of the work. And because skilling and digital content and all this matters to Microsoft, right? Because our mission is very clear, to empower every individual and organization to achieve more. The other way we look at alignment from a business as well as a social impact perspective is how do we use our resources and assets as part of the giving back to the community, right? For those who do not know, like AI, cloud is very, very big to Microsoft. To give an example, in India, we work and partner with a non-profit organization as well as a customer where we bring AI and big data to the community where we identify tuberculosis incidents, right, in the community, and we can track it and we can actually predict it and go in together with the government, the Ministry of Health, to support and eradicate it before it becomes a bigger issue in India itself, in the various communities. So that's what we do using data, using AI to actually do all this work. Basically, what I'm trying to say is we really look at alignment back to the business. How do we leverage the assets? How do we leverage the core assets? How do we leverage the people? How do we leverage the talent in the company on multiple aspects in order to bring forth the social impact work that Microsoft Philanthropy does? And that's really what we do at the end of the day. And just a call out to Tuan from LinkedIn, who is a colleague. Yeah, so yeah, that's really what we do at Microsoft.
Very clear. Thank you so much, Hosea. Now, Jan, Schneider Electric has a full-fledged of impact vehicles inside the organization. One foundation, 3 impact investing funds, and a sustainability team, plus inclusive business initiative inside the core business. So please, can you share with us, yes, what's your mission and how do you comment a bit this positioning? And it's very interesting because you see it can be very complementary, and it's not that you choose one and it's exclusive. So thank you very much. And Jan has a hybrid profile, business, and you transition to sustainable development at a certain part of a career, which is also very interesting to hear. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie, and thank you for having me here today. So as Sophie was saying, my name is Diane. I lead globally the education and youth program for Schneider Electric. So I'm part of the corporate citizenship department. And maybe to explain a bit more about Schneider Electric mission, we are maybe a bit less known compared to Microsoft. It's important to understand that first, so Schneider Electric is the global specialist in the digital transformation of the energy world, energy management and automation. And it's very important to see and understand that actually sustainability is at the core of our business and purpose. It's really at every stage of our value chain. So it impacts, of course, and embark all the company functions, the stakeholders, and the way we operate in communities. So our mission is really toward fighting climate change and reducing social inequalities. And we develop solutions actually to make energy safer, more reliable, more efficient, more sustainable, and to help our clients toward our net zero journey also. So if I look very quickly at corporate initiatives, and I can take 3 examples, as you were mentioning, Sophie. The first one of the Schneider Electric Foundation. So the program I lead actually is funded by the Schneider Electric Foundation. And the Schneider Electric Foundation purpose is really to skill and empower the youth to take part in the social and energy transition. So I would say in terms of beneficiaries, we focus more on the youth, but also in general, people that are not employed, not in education, underserved communities, women that are usually not well represented in the energy world. And we mainly work on the education sector, because especially for technical education, we believe that we have expertise and we need to contribute with the public authorities in developing impactful programs for the youth and for access to employment. So we support the development of technical and vocational education in partnership with government, NGOs, technical centers. And we also support programs that are empowering the youth to get the soft skills, technical skills, to really take part in the energy transition, but also to innovate.
So we are aligned with the energy world, but we put our focus on education where we can really have an added value, and we see the company as having a responsibility. If I look at impact investment now very quickly, in terms of impact investment, we are also supporting individuals and social entrepreneurs, actually, and social entrepreneurs that are accelerating the energy transition and access to energy. So again, we are looking at people, entrepreneurs at another stage of their life, and how they can really help us and the society fighting climate change, bringing new solutions and expertise for energy transition. And finally, if I look at businesses, we also develop social business around access to electricity, because of course, our strategy is to make energy more sustainable, more efficient, but we have to look at people that do not yet have access to electricity, and it's more than 800 million people worldwide. It's a big challenge. So we also want to bring our expertise to develop solutions to really reduce this number and help improve access to electricity worldwide. And we develop it through a mode of social business. So we really look more at the impact in terms of beneficiaries and how many people can get access to electricity thanks to our program, more than at the business part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. Now, moving on, I'm going to ask a little bit of the secret sauce to our panelists. So, Vincent, please, can you explain that yes, you set up the foundation in 2008, and what is quite fascinating is the strategic alignment journey that you've been through with the foundation. I think it's a lot of key learning out of it. We'd love to hear that from you. So can you share with us a bit of what triggered this evolution? And what, in your opinion, what's the main benefits of having such a clear narrative now?
Yes, it has been a journey. How much time do I have?
2 minutes for this question.
Okay, so I'll try to make it as short as possible. That will be challenging. So as you could see on that diagram, we started really on the very left side, a very non-material alignment on these traditional philanthropic fields, broad array of themes, and we moved slightly towards the right, nothing political here, to something, let's say, where indeed there was more connection and perhaps outlining what the meaning of being a corporate foundation is all about. Because we are not, as a corporate foundation, we receive our funds from the company and we deliver them through our grant-making, through our own decision-making processes, through our own governing lines. We're very independent, yet we are connected. So it's about this, how do you manage this independence, yet connected, kind of oxymoron notions. So first, why did we undertake the journey? It's a bit of a push-pull kind of phenomenon. The pull factor was that right from the outset, to avoid any suspicion of what the intentions of the foundations were and of the company establishing the foundation was, to avoid any suspicion of green/white/ whatever color washing, we needed to be very clear on the distance between the foundation and the company. But we needed to be very transparent also. So that's why we had our own communication channels, we had our own website. We joined a couple of umbrella organizations, membership organizations, AVPN, EVPA, EFC, now called Philea in Europe, although we're not a member anymore, because we thought that we had to build up the legitimacy and the credibility of the foundation. And then because you were transparent, because you were open and you were connected to, let's say, the whole ecosystem of philanthropy, people were questioning us about this relationship to the company. And you could not give an answer of how you connected and what was the meaning behind that relationship. And you couldn't just say, we are totally independent, they are at arm's length, and there is no interactions. That's simply not possible and not credible. So that was the pull factor. We had to kind of, perhaps explain better and find a clearer narrative to our relationship to the company. The push factor, so more coming from ourselves, is that we realize that, of course, we get our resources in our grant making from the resources, from the funds, from the money that the company gives us on an annual budget with a multi-year commitment, of course. However, when you're a corporate foundation, you have at hand a number of non-monetary resources. The company has a lot to offer, which is not just about funds, which is about expertise, which is about knowledge, which is about assets, which is about networks. And there is a moral imperative as a philanthropist, and I think we all share this. There is a moral imperative to make the best use you can of the resources you have at hand. So we believe we made the best use of the financial resources we had at hand, but we were kind of not really tapping into what the company had to offer. We were not leveraging enough what they had to offer to maximize our impact, because this is what philanthropy is all about. It's maximizing the impact. So that's why we kind of defined those two mainstream areas, which is sustainable livelihoods. And because sustainable livelihoods encompasses access to energy, encompasses access to clean energy. It's very much related also to social entrepreneurship and micro trade. And for a major trader, I mean, there are things that we can, on which we can capitalize or which we can leverage from the company. We needed to articulate that connection, and that's why we kind of moved a little bit more to the right, staying still. And also, I will not expand, but it's quite obvious for a commodity trader, which is basically a logistician moving commodities from point A to point B. That's why supply chains are also of essence to an organization like ourselves, because there's a lot of expertise. And I'll finish on this. That's why we are on that sweet spot. The middle is always a sweet spot, which the truth is always somewhere in the middle. But we don't want to go too far, because we believe that as a philanthropist, we're a corporate foundation. We are not a CSR department. What's the difference? That means that we are driven by the interest of the beneficiaries we want to serve through our partners and grantees. That's our driver. Whereas CSR, the driver of CSR is probably more, the business. And nothing wrong in there. You can do very good things, especially on the social front, if you're also driven by business and corporate interests. But as a philanthropist in the foundation, we are driven by the beneficiaries. So I feel we must not go too far on that scale, because otherwise I believe we would lose our identity as a corporate foundation.
So one interesting learning from this journey, Vincent, I think, is that you set very strict principles of independence for the foundation, yet we can hear that you are championing also the optimization of the collaboration, and that's not exclusive. That is very interesting approach. One very quick question and half a minute to answer. How your senior management, so I'm going across the mirror, how your senior management sees the alignment of the impact and business agenda? I know it's a bit of a provocative question for you.
Well, it's walking that thin line between corporate interests and indeed being an independent foundation is a subtle exercise full of challenges. But it all comes to education in the end. So I've been hammering so much that message internally of the independence of the foundation that I think it's now really kind of printed in the mindset of our senior managers. They understand very well what the independence means, and they will not dare to interfere in our choices. Having said this, they are very happy to give us, let's say, to let us leverage their expertise or their knowledge, which is the principle of the strategic alignment that we have chosen. I'm very wary, though, that I don't want the foundation to be instrumentalized. So I'm very careful that our own expertise is not leveraged too much for business purposes. But we have a very open, transparent conversation with the company. And also, just to be clear, I made it so clear right from the outset of the foundation that corporate philanthropy is not CSR, and I was not willing to embrace that part of the activity, that they had to set up their own CSR department, policy, activities, and operations. And because it exists, they have not been, let's say, relying unduly on the foundation for these type of activities. So there is a clear separation of roles and very good understanding between CSR and corporate philanthropy, and that has kind of reached also the mindset of our senior management.
Thank you, Vincent. So turning to Jason. Jason, as a leading conglomerate in Korea, how the 8 subsidiaries of SK Innovation align its overall impact strategy and purpose with SK Group? Because, you know, as a conglomerate, it's not an easy approach to really align on a common impact vision, but it's even more complex. You add an extra layer of complexity when you're a conglomerate, because those 8 different companies, subsidiary of SK Innovation, develop their own core business. They probably develop their own corporate social investment strategy. So how do you make sure they align on the common impact purpose of SK Innovation, which is we are an investment specialist in pursuit of stakeholders' happiness? Thank you.
Okay. SK Innovations celebrate its 60th anniversary this year. Could you give us applause, please?
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. As Sophie told us, the SK has a total of 8 subsidiaries. And we can say that the oil refining and petrochemical are the main business in terms of the profitability. Our company has been supplying energy, which is in total of amount of the enough energy for moving Korea for 60 years. But on the other hand, our businesses that include all our 8 subsidiaries is responsible for about 20% of Korea's carbon emission, including Scope 3. And plastic in amount of about over 100 billion when converted into beverage bottles. The growth in demand, energy consumption, and the petrochemical is expected to continue to grow due to the world population and economic growth. However, the carbon cost will continue to rise, and the green transition to renewable energy will accelerate. It will make it more difficult to carbon business to survive. So how should SK Innovation respond to this mega trend? I have no idea. I'm not that smart enough, but we have brilliant management to develop the strategies, and there is carbon to green strategies. SK Innovation pursuing the innovation of business portfolio and business model to centered on green. Thing is, I believe such process cannot be done alone, and eventually cooperation is required. Since 2013, SK Innovation is supported social enterprise, and after I joined the ESG office in 2019, we started focus on creating an ecosystem for eco-friendly social ventures, and we have established alliance with the government and venture capital to provide the systematic support. Let me elaborate more. The government provide commercialization subsidies to the environment venture we select, and we provide opportunity to cooperate with our subsidiaries. In addition, joint investment with venture capital is being carried out so that the necessary fund can be continuously secure during the growth process. And SK Innovation plans to develop more than 100 environment ventures by 2025 and nurture them into unicorns. Eventually, we would like to utilize them for our business innovation.
Thank you, Jason. Josea, we understood that the Tech for Social Impact team leveraged the scale and resources of Microsoft. How this coherence with the business agenda has been built over time, and how it contributes to the overall purpose of your company, empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more.
Yeah, thanks, Sophie, for the great question. Like I mentioned just now, the alignment is really, really important. I just also want to get a sense of the room. Just now, Sophie was asking who came from the corporate. Can I get a show of hands who comes from like the non-profit and NGOs? Any governments in here? Right, so the bulk of you are from corporates, if not non-profit. I came from the non-profit sector when I first started my career and moved into corporate social impact. I'm sharing this because in corporate social impact, we also see a journey of corporates moving from more impact focus and moving towards business impact, right? That balance is always the toughest, right? In showing up in how do we actually create that program itself. One thing which we have done because of Microsoft and a lot of the assets that we have, right? Like Office 365, we have Azure Cloud, we have a lot of assets available. There is an entire team under Microsoft Philanthropy that looks and focuses on tech for social impact, meaning how do they leverage Office 365, Azure Cloud, Microsoft Dynamics, and use it to support the nonprofit system, ecosystem, right? There's an entire team that leverages on that. Then there's another team that looks at how do we manage grants into skilling, into the other works as well. So how do we, I think the key question for us is how do we find that balance between creating societal impact and creating and managing business impact. That journey itself is not easy. That's the reality, right? If I can just be very, very open and honest in this conversation, I would say about 3 to 5 years ago, Microsoft was still more towards the left-hand side on, more on thematic alignment, industry alignment, right? In the past 3 years, there was a huge shift towards business alignment. And that was a very conscious effort to say, let's align a lot more with the business. And that's a decision, a tipping point where everything just shifted. And therefore, from a process perspective, from an alignment perspective, from an operational perspective, we were engaging a lot more with the business. I can proudly say that today, Microsoft Philanthropy, the social impact team, is seen as a business unit. It's seen as a must-have, not a good-to-have, right? For some of the corporates, I've worked in a corporate before where, in the CSR or CSI kind of role, it's like, great, go do your own thing, help us with some PR, help us with our reputation, good for you. But don't disturb us because we are making money, right? Some of you are nodding your heads because sometimes you feel like that as well. How do we therefore shift that over, right? Right now, leaders are coming to me, country managers are coming to me and say, I've got this business that we want to pursue, let's come together to create a holistic proposal with our customer. That's a very different conversation from good to have to a must-have, right? And that's really the journey for us on how we look at the alignment and over time become a lot more balanced.
Yeah, very impressive to onboard the internal stakeholders of the company, and primarily the clients, right? So it's fascinating. It's probably also a challenge in terms of impact integrity. So it's not simple, I can imagine. But that's really fascinating. And a quick question on what type of resources the leadership team is putting in place to incentivize managers to come to you and to achieve the KPI, maybe the goals. And how do you measure that?
We measure it. Very, very interestingly, Microsoft is the first organization where I come into that there is actually metrics for the business side on social impact. Right? That alignment is so strong that we are pulled into business discussions, that we have to, that the business people, when they report upwards on not just on the profit and the revenue, but also on impact together with us. Right? So without going into much details, we have an entire program in each of the key countries where there are 4 pillars. One of the pillars is social impact. And then holistically, we have to report that on a quarterly basis back to headquarters on how we do it, right? Holistically as a business. And that's really, we see how those comes in with the metrics on what we want to measure in terms of, for example, skilling, in terms of partnership with our customers, and bringing all that upwards. Because I'm a strong believer that as much as Microsoft is a big company, the societal challenges and issues are bigger than Microsoft. And the only way we can solve it is if we partner together, not just internally as a business, but together with our customers as well, so that we can create a bigger impact, that we can scale our impact, that we can create collective impact. And that's really the whole thinking behind it.
Very clear. Thank you very much, José. Diane, we understood very clearly the coherence in terms of strategic positioning and complementarity between the foundation, the impact funds, the social business, you very clearly explained, building on the respective strengths and align with the purpose of the company. And it would be very interesting for the audience to understand, how this vision was articulated from the beginning. Can you tell us more about this journey from the leadership team?
Yes. So I think sustainability first really started 17 years ago at Schneider Electric, like to have really a strategic thinking and alignment with the business and the strategy, the global and local strategy. If I look at the initiative I mentioned, the Schneider Electric Foundation, the investment fund, the social business, so they were all created under the Sustainable Development Department, which is the department really leading the strategy for the business in general, but also creating initiatives around access to electricity, the communities we impact. So they were all created under a Sustainable Development Department. And if we look at the Schneider Electric Foundation, there was a shift in 2009. Before 2009, we were funding many different types of initiatives that were suggested by our employees. But the CEO, Jean-Pascal Tricoire, that is still our CEO, asked us really, what is the impact? How can we engage our employees in this initiative, really? And it was hard to respond, because it's hard to define impact measurement when you are doing many initiatives also in field where you do not necessarily have an expertise. So this is when we decided to align our initiative to our expertise. And we decided to focus a lot on education, because in 1929, Schneider Electric created its own school in France, because at that time we realized that technical vocational education was underinvested. It wasn't really a priority, while it's really also the bridge between education and access to employment. It's necessary for the industry and energy markets. And in this sector, we could really bring added value because we knew as an industrial what was the need of the market. So we thought, let's invest in technical vocational education worldwide, and we do it now in 46 countries because we can have our employees bringing their expertise to the training program. We can bring our expertise to what is strategic for the country development and our technologies. So this is first where we align the philanthropic activities we had. In terms of access to electricity investment fund, there was also it was also a long journey. I think access to electricity, it was a necessity. You know, we needed to bring solution and expertise to make sure access to electricity comes everywhere faster. Energy would be more reliable, more efficient for everyone. We couldn't only look at the market where people already had electricity. And I think there is an interesting shift also, because before we were looking at the revenues, but now if you look at our ambition, it's in terms of how many people are actually getting access to electricity. And we committed by 2025 to support 50 million people worldwide. And in terms of impact fund, investment fund, we at first decided to focus also on access to electricity, and to invest in companies that are bringing other solutions that we may not have and can accelerate access to energy. And we still do it today. But then we realized we need to look at the energy transition also in general, and also to support other social entrepreneurs that are bringing innovative solutions, and see how we can support them with funds and expertise, which is very important for us. And today, last year we had a shift again, because actually, so the foundation and the investment fund are now part of corporate citizenship, and the access to energy program stayed under sustainability. So we decided really to have two departments, one focusing on climate, and the other one more focusing on beneficiaries and people, because we truly think we need to accelerate the impact we have in communities, and to really have a group of people that are thinking long-term and of course short-term action on how we can reduce social inequalities. And this is what we are trying to do with the investment funds we have, and also with the Schneider Electric Foundation, and always again working in the energy world. So I would say that's how the leadership really structured during the years our journey. And for every program we have objective every 5 years, new objective, and it's in our barometer, our Schneider Electric Sustainability Impact.
Very impressive. And probably one of the key success factors is the continuity of the governance. And to have, since 10, 15 years ago, it's not that you had 15 leaders really onboarding on this journey. You had only a couple, especially one, Mr. Gilles Vermaux-Desroches, very iconic impact leader in Europe, in France, and he got this vision, right? That 15 years ago,
Yes.
he got this vision of a holistic approach, and putting the societal impact inside the business, and sustainability was obviously complementary to the philanthropic and impact investing.
And it's a good point, because also when you work in sustainability, you need time. So you cannot be under the same pressure as the business. You need a team that can see long-term, and it's actually one of the discussions I had with the strategy manager a few years ago. We were discussing about how employees understand what we are doing also in the journey. And he told me, you know, if people understand what you are doing, you are at the wrong place, because we are asking you to be visionary and think long-term and see what are going to be tomorrow challenges. And I think Gilles was very smart in building a team that would have really time to build this strategy. And when you look at partnership, even for the foundation, sometimes it takes 2 years to build one partnership, you know. So it's really true that we needed the leadership team to have people that stay on the long run, to really like support this journey and have a long-term vision.
And always supported with the global CEO, and over 20 years' time, you had 2 global CEO, which also simplify. It's a really key successful factor. Thank you very much. A quick, last but not least question, Diane, transitioning on, you know, on the measurement and the KPI, how the leadership team incentivized the whole organization. It's quite remarkable. For the first time in February 2022, Schneider Electric was ready to communicate to equity analysts on a quarterly basis on the impact and sustainability progress KPI, really. And that was very well received by the market. And you had announced that last year, the day when Schneider Electric was elected the world best sustainable company. And you walked the talk. And 1 year later, February 2022, you communicated to equity analysts.
Yes.
How you connect the dots internally with this ESG agenda? And by the way, very interestingly, we had a session where we realized that it's not any longer environmental, social, and governance. It's environmental stakeholders and governance. And I think it speaks by itself now. We all understand that. So how you connect the dots and what type of incentives KPI is shared by the leadership team?
Yes, so I'm going to try to be very quick.
Yes.
First, when we started the sustainability journey, we built an extra financial barometer to measure our performance. So when we present financial results, we also present extra financial results. And actually, this is even now sometimes where we have more questions about our performance. So we have built 5 barometers approximately over the last 15, 17 years. And the last barometer is called Schneider Sustainability Impact. It drives our strategy in the short-term perspective. It means over 5 years approximately. So usually it takes 1 year to build the barometer, to really have a steering committee of employees, but external stakeholders to help build commitment and indicators. So this barometer is really the tool that is leading the strategy in terms of sustainability for business and for the purpose. So we have 6 big commitments right now. Of course, to contribute to the climate, to a climate positive society, to manage our resource more efficiently, to lead by example in terms of trust, so in terms of governance, as you were saying, to create opportunities for all generations, to impact positively local communities, and to embark all of our employees in this journey. So these big commitments, they all follow actually the SDG goals. So I would say that United Nations goals is really the long-term perspective. And in terms of short-term, we try to have this barometer where inside the 6 main goals, we have 11 indicators. And every quarter, we evaluate the performance of these indicators. We publish, of course, we want to be transparent, the results, and we have a target by 2025. If I look at foundation, we want to support the training of 1 million people by 2025, and every quarter, we publish how many people were impacted by our action. And what is also very important is that on an annual basis, we have external auditors that are really evaluating the work we are doing in terms of KPIs. So this barometer is really led by 6 big commitments towards environment, governments, people. Under the 6 commitments, we have 11 indicators. We report every quarter, we publish every quarter, we audit on an annual basis. And as you were saying, we have incentive plans. And the board of directors each year look at this incentive because half of the variable compensation of the employee is based on the financial and extra financial performance of the company. So we also want to reward the employees for the progress we are making with this Schneider sustainability impact. So I think you need, in order to have a clear strategy, you need to have high objectives to really put the bar very high. You need to have a clear tool measuring your impact with KPIs. You need to have transparency and external audits, of course, very important. You need to have heavy communication to embark everyone. And you need to have incentive and rewards regarding what you are doing.
It took you 10 seconds to recap, but it takes years to put in place, right? So thank you so much for your patience. Now we open the floor to questions. Please, so we have microphone in the room. And in parallel, we will check the question in the app.
Hello.
If you can introduce yourself, thank you.
Can you hear me? Yes. Hello, my name is Shalida from Chevron. I work in the social investment team, but we sit in the corporate affairs department. We don't have our own foundation. So it's very interesting to know what was your business justification to your leadership team when you trying to set up your corporate foundation.
To whom the question is addressed?
Anybody that passed through the process to engage your top leadership to justify to set up your corporate foundation.
There's two corporate foundations, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Okay, to me.
Yes, please.
Well, the foundation was created in 2008. It had, you know, when I joined, it had a blank roadmap. They asked me to build actually what the foundation was meant for, to do what, with whom, how, for which purpose. Somehow the management of the company had no other objective than first one. They thought it's important to have a foundation to somehow give back. It was quite a well-doing company. First thing. Second thing, there was massive, you know, charitable initiatives taken here and there by. It's a global company, so with big hubs a little bit everywhere in the world, in Singapore, Shanghai, London, Geneva, Montevideo, Johannesburg, whatever. And it was a little bit, you know, it was a little bit messy. And there was no real structure in all these efforts that were undertaken here and there. And there was a clear need for kind of giving structure and giving guidance to choose the right partners, to do the right thing with the right organization. So first it was, the initial intention was just that, to give structure. And then the whole reflection on how we should work and how should we relate to the company came a little bit afterwards. Once, let's say that, as I mentioned earlier, that credibility and that legitimacy, operational credibility of the foundation was established. So how did we do it? It was just a constant conversation. It was just, you know, being very transparent and very outspoken also, and rather firm also what the objectives of the foundation were, to make a clear difference between the CSR aspect, which was not to be handled by the foundation, I believed. And that's what I've been hammering all these years. And that's, again, what pushed the company to establish its own kind of CSR sustainability instruments and tools. But yeah, it's just, you know, by being very clear on what the focus of the foundation was and how it should be managed, that, let's say, and being open and in a constant conversation, that this was understood, accepted, and respected by the management of the company. And 15 years on, it's still the case.
Jan?
Yes, maybe if I can add a word. So Schneider Electric Foundation was created in 1999, so I wasn't there, as you can imagine. Nevertheless, if I can say a word, I think it was the first tool created by Gilles, actually, regarding this extra financial impact of the company. So at that time, you know, sustainability wasn't a big subject as today. You know, it was the beginning. And he was thinking, you know, of how do we measure, how do we look at the impact we have on communities, how we engage also our employees for that. We need like a specific entity that is going to look at this in a strategic way. Because if we don't have people really looking after this, it's not going to be led by the business team, you know? So I think this was very important. I think also at first it was internally in Schneider Electric, and then we shift, because now the Schneider Electric Foundation is actually under the edge of the French Foundation in France. So it's also in terms of transparency and control. They are the one actually managing our funds. So I think this also in the process was very important. And then in 2005, we created the Sustainable Development Department, really, you know, because then we saw that actually it was more than the foundation activity and the funds we were allocating to our community. It was really to have a strategy internally also for all the division towards sustainability. So we needed to have several tools for that. So the foundation kept looking after community in a strategic way and what we could bring under the Sustainable Development Department that was really globally leading the strategy for climate and people and governance. So this is a bit about the journey and how the foundation was created. And as I said, at first we were supporting all type of initiative, and then we decided like to be more impactful, and we focused more on education in the energy sector.
And if I may, when we discussed with our corporate members, they would tell you that actually, just echoing what Dan was saying, that it really brings, such a vehicle brings a new ecosystem to the company. And it's really every word counts. It's really a vantage point between business and civil society. And it's a completely different, I mean, it's a total different planet. Business is managing a completely different type of stakeholders, clients, and so on. And it's building the bridge with civil society. I mean, you need a foundation to do that. So it's, yes, accessing a new ecosystem. And that's really the only way. Thank you very much. Can we have maybe a next question?
Thank you. Very good morning. My name is Sawatha from CARE Cambodia. And back to the slide presentation that our moderator shared on the mutual benefit of having the support funded, invested by corporate world toward the beneficiary, but there's also a mutual benefit toward back to the branding of the company. My point is, and I'm speaking on behalf of the garment factory workers, I would say. Normally, for example, CARE Cambodia, we receive grant from brand to support to those factories that belong to them to build the social protection policy or structure system whatsoever. So making sure that the factory under their support will have all of those non-sexual harassment at the workplace, good nutrition knowledge, good reproductive health knowledge, for example. But there are more than 1,000 factories in Cambodia, an example, and there are only around few hundred of those factories that belong to those famous brands that fund to NGO like us to do this corporate work. So if we only focus on the existing factories that belong to those brands, how long would it take to make every factories around Cambodia, every factory workers in Cambodia to benefit the same? The response would be it takes years and it takes more than cares to do the work. But it's very hard to get the investor more than those brands who are interested in only their own factories. In order to make the government to change all the legislation in the whole system, in the whole, that all factories will have to do the same for social protection policy with every workers in every factories. So my question to you as the lead of the investor of the corporate world, what would your strategy, what are your strategy to make sure that the benefits are not only to the beneficiary of your corporate, for example, if you own if you own certain brand, and the benefit would go in a strategic way that would change the whole system, that the government demand or require every sector or every factory to make a change, so that every factory in Cambodia would access to the same social protection policy. I'm sorry if my question is not very clear.
To me, it's quite clear.
Thank you, sir.
It's a very interesting question. I'm not sure I can answer on the garment industry because that's not really the sector in which I'm working, but there's a very big foundation that you may have heard of, which is the Laudes Foundation, which works very much on those issues. But anyway, you're touching at the aspects and actually of the strength of these four models that Sophie presented earlier, and especially the industry one. Because in the end, if you work in that field, you work in sectors and themes which are of relevance, not to your own company, not to the business agenda or the commercial agenda of your company, but you do work at the level of the sector and of the industry. So let me just take two examples, which by analogy may kind of reassure you on, although it's a challenge to cover the full needs. But in our case, we have been working, for instance, with an organization working on social issues, mental health problems in the shipping world with seafarers, which is a very, it's unknown, it's very much under the radar, but it's a community with enormous problems and social issues. And we have been working with an organization. And of course, shipping is very relevant to Trafigura as a company because it's also a shipper. It's a major ship. It has its own ships, but it's also charters a lot of ships. But we have been working with this organization called ICE1, based in the UK, and we have been working and still are working on developing business, better practices in that world, with the purpose of at some point we work as a bit of an experimental lab. But the idea is indeed to then perhaps put those practices to embed them in the corporate practices. And then it's not ours anymore. We are there to test, to experiment, to support prototypes, experimentations. And if those are, promising, then it's our role to put it on the table, to put it on the corporate agenda first of our company, but also as a company never operates alone in the industry through the partners we have been working with. I'm not going to take the floor too long, so the second example I will not expand on, but it was the same for measuring carbon emission in the freight sector, where we worked indeed at the industry level, but for not just, to incorporate those methods, that methodology and those norms, it was with the Smart Freight Center based in the Netherlands, into the industry of freight, not just the freight of Trafigura, but the industry. And that's our way of kind of, enlarging, widening the impact of what we do with one or two or three partners.
If I can just say a word, I can maybe not respond to this specific example, but I think you touch a very good point about advocacy and scaling up. And this is very essential. And as you are saying, it's first important to maybe start small, test, try, make model. But then as a company, we have the responsibility to advocate also and to make sure we can go to the next level. And for this, you need to work with public authorities. It's very essential. And if I look at education, for example, for Schneider Electric, this is very essential, and this is why we put high objective in terms of impact, in terms of beneficiaries, and also in terms of number of center impacted. And I just want to say we have the best example in this room because I have my colleague Aswita and Hedi here from Indonesia, and they have built an amazing program actually with the Ministry of Education for SMKs in the energy sector, where they said, okay, we need to renew training in the energy field in Indonesia to make it more impactful, to make sure that the students, they get access to employment at the end. And for this, we're gonna work with the government to renew SMKs in the country. And in 5 years, They have created one center of excellence that really has the core expertise and can spread it to the trainers of the country, because trainers are very key in education. And they have renewed 125 SMKs in the country with the government, impacting more than 13,000 people over the last 5 years. So I just want to say, I completely agree with you. We need to start small, but then we also need to advocate and work with public authorities and make sure we scale up, because I think it's also our role and responsibility in the society.
If I can just quickly add, I love your question. I came from a nonprofit sector. I joined the corporate sector. That balance is always very difficult. My suggestion, and given my experience, is to always elevate the conversations. Sometimes corporates know nothing. We just look like we know, right? So that's the reality. Nonprofits have the role and responsibility to educate corporates as well, right? How do you bring and level up the work that corporates are doing? One quick example, we were working, like 2 weeks ago, we signed a MOU with the Indonesia government to upskill and reskill 9 million people in Indonesia by 2030. So that's a partnership. I would suggest think about elevating it at the government level, because once governments are involved, it's no longer just about one corporate, two corporates. Because let me tell you a secret. Corporates want to partner with government because it helps them with their business. And once we can elevate it at that level, you will have a huge win.
Thank you. Who said yesterday that corporates were not at the table of the strategic discussion in public-private partnership? I disagreed, and I'm so happy to have our experts confirming that. We have one question from the app for Jason. Jason, you have mentioned about the eco-friendly social venture. Can you give a specific example?
Okay. As I mentioned, we select the technical startup with the high potential for collaboration with SK Innovation. In environmental fields such as the low carbon technology, plastic recycling, and EV batteries. Currently, 15 to 20 companies are recruit per year. For example, there's a name, Rhine Root, the startup that develops materials by upcycling surplus lithium-ion batteries, separation film, and has developed their technology by receiving samples from the SK subsidiaries and launched a clothing brand using a material last year. And they succeed to attracting the seed investment. Also, they have kind of collaboration with the other big corporation like Hyundai Motors. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jason. We have maybe we take a last question before the wrap-up from the app. So do you think that the recent Dutch bank greenwashing scandal, where the subsidiary DWS gave out high ESG scores to the highest bidder rather than companies who earn through their work, could lead to doubt that meaningful social impact is rather not the end goal, but rather the positive public perception that comes with it? Anyone want to react?
I'll give it a try. You know how companies play around with their numbers so that their revenue looks better, right? So that their stock prices go up. This is basically the similar situation when it comes to social impact and corporate social impact, right? As corporate social impact professionals, I think integrity is at the top of the list. Ethics, integrity, and what we do. Because the work that we do, if I can just put it very bluntly, is the most real of entire business. Because we're impacting lives. We are helping someone with their livelihood. We are helping someone with their health. We ask helping someone with their families, with their shelter, with their food, with their water. And we cannot hide it behind greenwashing, whitewashing, whatever color we want to call it, because that's not real. At the end of the day, a single life is matter, and that really matters. And that's really my entire take on the situation.
Vincent.
Yeah, I'll echo completely what Hossein said. He took the words out of my mouth. Yes, the question was very relevant. And of course, the risk is there. And the closer you are to the business, the higher the risk is. So definitely, you have to be very clear as the social actor within the corporate, under whichever form, as a foundation, impact fund, whatever. You have to be very clear-sighted on what your mission and purpose is. And you have to be, impact integrity is the clear word. If you want to be sure, to be faithful and loyal to your mission, you have to be clear of what your mission is. And then you have to stay integral to that mission. Actually, EVPA is has undertaken a very good survey, study on impact integrity, which I invite you to consult. It's available on the website, on EVPA's website. And that came in the flow of this survey about strategic alignment as a natural response because, yes, the answer to your question is there is a high risk, and you have to be very careful about this.
Exactly. It's really finding the sweet spot. It's always managing an unbalanced, unstable balance, really. And thank you for the propaganda. Vincent, indeed, EVPA published really strategic guidance on some risk mitigation tools to help you managing at best this impact integrity in a corporate organization. We are, before wrapping up in 2 minutes, I'd like to ask in 1 or 2 words from our panelists, 1 or 2 tips or advice for the audience, really to help our participants best find this best coherence between aligning impact and business agenda. What would be your top tip or advice? 1 or 2 words. Who wants to start? Diane, maybe.
I don't know, but as I said earlier, I think we discussed also on Tuesday with Christina about this, about sometimes misunderstood by our company, but I think I would say be visionary, think long term. SDGs are here for that, actually, to help us think long term, but it's true that there is business pressure. We have to look at short term, but I think if we are working on sustainability, philanthropy, you are actually here really to think long term, take risk, put high objective, and be this visionary person for the company.
Thank you. Hosea?
Yeah, I'm going to cheat a bit. The keyword is value, right? But I'm going to split into 3, right? So my advice when you are looking at impact, right? Know your value. What's your company's value, right? Because it's not about just doing good things. There are a lot of good things to be done on earth, right? Know your value, share your value to the world. And the last part is invest in your value. Because a lot of times people want to do things, but they don't want to invest, right? So this will be the 3 key takeaways. Know your value, share your value to the world, and invest in your value.
Jason?
Okay, rather than giving advice or tip in front of people who are expert than me, and I hope that the ABPN events create more opportunity to think and participate together. And in particular, I am expecting to receive future interest from the countries and companies and investors and ventures that wishes to cooperate with SK Innovations. Please feel free to call me.
We will. Vincent, the last word.
Yeah, it's always complicated when you have to come with tips and advices as a last speaker because they're often mentioned before you. So I can only agree. I can do nothing more than agree with what has been said before. Be indeed very clear about what your purpose, mission, and values are, and stay faithful and loyal to those values and mission. And each time you're in doubt, just kind of repeat them in your mind. The second thing is, you know, there's a massive trend of the corporate world embracing the social impact because they see huge market value there. And there are very good initiatives, and we've heard many of them here. There are also not so good initiatives, as was mentioned in one of the questions. So just be, as we are all dedicated, whether from the outside world, from NGOs, non-profits, or being from the inside corporate world, let's remain skeptical. Let's not just take words and intentions from the corporate world for granted. So remain doubtful, remain challenging towards your corporate colleagues. Make sure that what is said is also what is being acted and enacted in the corporate practices. And I would even dare to add, be a little bit subversive towards your corporate colleagues. Subversiveness has some value.
And I don't know if you all agree, but I think partnership is key and collaboration, and that's why we are here with AVPN. And I really want to thank AVPN actually for that, because it brings so many new opportunities and objectives for the future. So yeah, partnership also and collaboration.
Yeah, and talking about purpose, and again, it's really being sure that the companies are net positive to the stakeholders, and the only way to achieve that is through strategic collaboration, exactly, namely partnership with government. And just a quick empathy word also for the companies, because actually when you step back a minute, really companies, there is an urgency to act, and it's not easy to move 100,000 of people, a whole organization, and it requires really a bold audacity, sometimes a reset of leadership, really to revisit, to embed this societal element inside the business culture. It's really Mars and Venus in terms of culture, and I think that this again requires leadership of companies needs to question themselves. It's a revolution as such. And yes, I think that those companies now are ready for collaboration to achieve the SDG goals, and they have to put the whole organization in traction. And yes, definitely, I want to be optimistic. We see that we thrive at EVPA to develop those resources to help companies engaged in that way, in that direction. So please reach out to us, AVPN and EVPA teams. We'd be very happy to support you. I really want to thank warmly our panelists to share such a valuable insight, precious contribution. Thank you very much again, AVPN, for having us, and Trafigura for making this discussion happening. Thank you.